Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from Gina K Designs and their Stamptember release with Simon Says Stamp. So I think it's called Shimmering Lights. I have the stamps and the dies, and then in addition I'm going to be using her Christmas Begins with Christ and the holly background. So using solid stamps, I actually did a video with her set for Stamptember last year that was solid stamps. I'll link that at the end if you're interested in more techniques with this. But I'm going to go with an old classic today, which is a emboss resist. I feel like it's been forever since I've done a video, and I figured we'd go over some basics. So first things first, with embossing, you do need an anti-static type of tool. I used to use the powder bag. Now I really love the Rabbit Hole Designs brush. There's other ones on the market as well. And then we need a ink that will emboss well. So there's the ones that were on the market for a really long time are these clear embossing inks. I've had that Versamark pad forever. And some companies have their own. Basically, it's just a clear ink that you can use. The next best kind of ink to be able to heat emboss with is going to be a pigment ink. There's a bunch of different ones on the market. This is actually my favorite way to do the heat embossing. I like to stamp in the color pigment ink, and then typically I use a matching embossing powder. And your embossing powder does matter as well. If you're using a more intricate design, you probably want a detail embossing powder. That's what I use for most of mine because I typically use heat embossing for my sentiments. But so basically we're going to treat the paper with our anti-static tool, and then we're going to stamp it. If you want to do multiple layers, if you have a stamp positioner like I do, I have a Misty, it works best to stamp in multiple light layers versus like really kind of like gobbing it on. So I typically stamp mine twice, and then I will take it over. I have just a blank sheet of paper that I hold underneath that, and then I will put on my embossing powder. This is a white detail embossing powder, and then I usually do my embossing powder twice as well, just to make sure everything's good. To reduce warping, and I'll show you the example of warping when I'm done with this one, because I did not preheat my gun. I usually will preheat my gun to reduce the warping, but I wanted to be able to show you what that looks like. There is a way to fix that if you do get warping, but typically if you preheat your heat tool, just be careful where you're pointing it. It is a lot of heat. Then when you bring it to your paper, it melts the embossing powder pretty quickly. So here you can see like my paper is warped. For me, because I'm going to be doing a lot of ink blending, it actually ended up being fine and it flattened out on its own. But if you need help flattening yours down, you can put it in, just like take a piece of printer paper, fold it in half, put your card in between to protect it, and then run it through your die cut or embossing machine a couple of times. If you don't have a die cut or embossing machine, you can put it under some heavy books for a little while, and that'll help it flatten out as well. So for the first one, we did white. For this one, we're going to move into the metallics. So I'm stamping this tree in gold. This one is from the Christmas Begins with Christ set, but the Stamptember set does have a tree this would work well with also. And then I'm going to use gold embossing powder on top of this. And again, just doing that twice. We'll talk about what to do with strays if you have stray embossing powder just a little bit. Before I get too far into the video, I do want to say the Stamptember set is first come, first serve. You can do this technique with any stamps. They could be line or solid. Gina has lots and lots of really great solid stamps. I will link to the ones that I'm using below, as well as to the Stamptember set, but the Stamptember set is once it's gone, it's gone. So you can get the stamp, you can get the stamp and die bundle, or they actually did something fun this year and they did a stamp die bundle and then a polyglaze, which is for foil, because Gina does all the foil. So those are your options. So if you're like, hey, I really love that set, I want to get it, like stop the video, go buy it, because once it's gone, it's gone. But like I said, you can do this with any of the stamps that you have. Gina, just her style of stamps lends itself really well to techniques like this because she does do a lot of solid image stamping. So we did the white, we did the metallic. This one, we're using a full background, this holly background. And I'm going to stamp it down. I'm using the clear ink for this one, the clear embossing ink. This one can get a little bit tricky because it's very difficult to see when you stamp it down. So if your paper moves at all, you can't really tell if you're like double stamping. Which is why I have underneath my paper, I have like that sticky mat that from my Sweet Petunia, which is helping to hold it in place. And then I leave my magnet in there in addition to that to help hold the sticky mat down as well. So I'm going to stamp this twice. And then for my embossing powder, instead of using a color, I am using a sparkle embossing powder. So this is a clear embossing powder, which means whatever I have in the background it's gonna seal it up. So in this case, I just have white cardstock, but you could do ink blending, dry that down, and then, or coloring with marker, dry that down, and then stamp on top of it, stamp your stamp, and it would trap it. That's a whole nother technique. Maybe I'll do a video on that. Let me know if you'd like to see that. But this particular one is called Sparkle, and it is clear and it has glitter in it. And y'all know I love the glitter. So here where my finger was sitting, I did have a little bit of powder sitting where I didn't want it to be. So I just went in with a dry paintbrush. That seems to be like a smaller dry paintbrush. I think that was like a number 2. Seems to be my kind of go-to for getting any excess powder where like if it's somewhere that I don't want it. That works for me. But if you just have like 1 or 2 little specks, Laura Basson actually taught me this. You can use like a die tool, like with the little needle poker part to like pick them up, like the individual granules. And that works excellent too. So when you are heating this, you want to make sure that you are heating it until it is smooth and melted. Sometimes when you're doing a full background like I was here, it's easy to miss spots, and I totally did miss one. I could see it still looked like granules, but for sure when I ran my hand over it, I could feel it. So you just want to make sure that you kind of tip it and check it in all of the lights to make sure that it is smooth and melted down. If it still looks textured, you probably need to continue to heat it. So now we've done a kind of like a center image with the tree, the image coming down from the top with the ornaments, the all over background. And then this one, if you don't have a background, but you want to fill up a background, you absolutely can use multiples. These are all of the snowflakes and one of the small, I think it's supposed to be a star. I just used it as another snowflake. I don't think you can tell. So for this one, I'm actually going to stamp it kind of 2 different ways. So the first one I'm stamping in is silver pigment ink. And this is going to cause these snowflakes to be a little bit darker with the silver. And I'm just arranging them so that it's going to be kind of like a gradient from the top to the bottom. And then another fun thing that you can do with your embossing powder is you can actually mix them. So understand that you can't put them back into the container like this. But so I'm using a white satin pearl along with my silver. And I'm like mixing them right on the page. I'm going to kind of shake them around, put that excess onto that copy paper. And then in order to do it again, you can either scoop it up like I did there, or you can pick up the paper and actually dump it onto your paper. And then I'm just going to put this into a separate container while I am working on this card, so that I don't have to keep mixing new embossing powder. That can be a really, really fun technique, especially if you have multiple colors to get like a multicolor look. You can definitely tell, where the silver is a little bit different. The white pearlescent does definitely lend itself to a silver, but it's almost like a light silver. I don't know how to explain it. This one was fun. So I stamped the first ones in silver. Those are a little bit darker when you look at the stamping not with the light catching it. And then for these next ones, I decided I was going to stamp in white and then use that same embossing powder. So it gives kind of like multiple tones in the background, which I think is really kind of fun. And then we're also going to mix it up with our ink blending, doing a couple of different ways that way. You can, like, you don't have to do it as an emboss resist. You can do your ink blending and then stamp your images over top if you're using like a colored embossing powder, because with the ink blending, it does, like, distress inks are meant to stay wet longer for techniques, and then also so you can emboss with them. Here, what I'm showing you is I did not, because I was like just in the zone and I was just stamping, I didn't treat with my anti-static tool. So you can see all of this left over embossing powder that is definitely not where I want it. So I'm having to go in with that paintbrush and kind of clean that up, but it does make a huge difference using that anti-static tool. I remember when I first started, stamping, one of the first things that I did was this embossing powder. I actually just told the story recently, because I heated it with a, with a hair dryer. But it was wild because we were all laughing because Carissa heated hers with a stove, like an electric stove, and Jen Raza heated hers with a light bulb. So like all of us were trying to save dollars on the heat tool. So there is ways to do it a little bit differently, but the heat tool is definitely going to be the safest and most effective. But you do want to make sure that you're treating with your anti-static tool so that you're not getting powder where you don't want it. Those are like relatively inexpensive. If you like, you don't have to get one of the brushes, though I will be honest, the Rabbit Hole Designs one is the best one that I've ever used. But the little powder bag also works as well. And there's other ones on the market too. Worst case scenario, if you're like, I want a heat emboss, but I really I'm on a super, super budget, try a a bounce sheet, like the fabric softener sheet, which helps get rid of static. Try that. So now here I have this leftover container of like some gems that I finished using. So now I can put my embossing powder mix into that container and I can save it to use at another time. So yeah, these were super fun to make because sometimes just getting back to basics helps you to make cards. Like I made 4 cards, I don't want to say pretty quickly, because, I do like to add all of the details and shimmers and sparkles and all that jazz. But so here's what we're working with here. So we have the white, the gold, the clear, and then the silver. For the ink blending, you do want to cut these down to whatever size you want them to be to start, because we're going to be using a variety of colors. We're going to be doing gradients. We want to make sure that we're keeping those darkest areas on the edges. And so you do want to make sure that these are already trimmed down. So will be a little bit of regular time and then a little bit of sped up because we're doing a lot of ink blending. So this one's going to be regular time. First things first, I'm going to take my lightest color, which in this case is Twisted Citron, and I'm going to cover my entire background. So I'm just going to make it all green. And then for this one, I'm going to do what I like to call the halo effect. So creating a darker border and leaving a lighter center already brings your eye into where your focal point is going to be. So from the Twisted Citron, I'm going to move out to Mowed Lawn around the edges, and then Rustic Wilderness all the way out to Black Soot. And actually, I have another video about specifically for ink blending. And I feel like that was Christmas too, but I feel like it was Spellbound years. But anywho, so this way I find that I get the best blend is by doing two rounds of ink blending. So I go all the way out to the black, and I know black is kind of scary, and like right now it doesn't really look that great, but it's that second layer that kind of brings everything together. you're building up on, like you're building the color up upon itself. So that black doesn't stay looking black. That black then just looks like a darker green or a darker blue or purple or teal or, whatever color combination that we happen to be using. And as we're working our way back in, you can see that the center is really kind of glowing. So this halo one is one of my kind of go-tos. I really like the way that it makes this one little stamp kind of the star of the show. And if you were doing like if you're like, oh, I'm gonna make multiples, you could absolutely heat emboss this onto some colored cardstock to make your life a little bit easier. And then, just do like a little bit of ink blending around the edges and you could knock out some really quick Christmas cards. So here, because I love all the shimmer and the shine, I know not everybody loves all the spatters. That's totally fine. Skip this part if you don't like it. So I'm going to put my stamp back in place to protect my sentiment. And then I'm going to mix up some gold perfect pearls and I am going to kind of splatter these onto the background. This one image is carrying our whole card, but we have a large expansive area around it. Now you could absolutely trim it down so that it was a little bit smaller and you had more of a border. That would look totally fine. Or you can find some other way to fill it up. You could do like a little bit of stenciling on the edges or something like that. I just did the gold spatter to help add some interest. So now here we are. Things are going to be a little bit more sped up from here. So again, because I'm starting with white cardstock, I am going to go in, I'm going to take my lightest color, I'm going to cover everything. This one, we're kind of I've trimmed the outside edges to be slightly smaller. And so then from the Salty Ocean, I'm going to go to Blueprint Sketch, Chip Sapphire, and then Black Soot. And I'm doing it so that the highlight is down the middle. And that way, again, we're drawing the eye to those ornaments. You absolutely could like color, stamp these and then color these. That would be super cute. But I just wanted to go with something that was nice and easy with the embossing, because again, like I just said, like sometimes you just need a quick Christmas card. And this is something that would, you could absolutely knock out pretty quickly. Like I said, I made all 4 of these cards in one night. I turned on a little audiobook. I sat down and I started doing my stamping and ink blending. Honestly, the part that took the longest was finding the cardstock to match my sentiments. And even then, I could have just made that if I wanted to. So yeah, so if you, everybody feels differently about Stamptember. I work with the Stamptember sets that companies that I work with send me, that, companies that I love, and I'm happy to support them. I totally get that sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating, that they're kind of like here and then they're gone. So I totally get that, which is why I always offer another option of something that is sold in their store regularly. But it seems like this year, let's talk about what we're doing. So here I have a little bit of a paper towel. I've spritzed it very lightly and then kind of like patted it dry. I'm not going in with a wet paper towel, and I'm just going to rub that over the white, like the surface of the white, to clean up any of the ink that's sitting on top and help that emboss resist to be bright white. And then I did, for this one, instead of just doing perfect pearls, I did a little bit of water in the background, kind of like, like little lights or little snowflakes or little something kind of like floating down in the lights. I like that kind of ethereal kind of look. And then I did perfect pearls in the color Perfect Pearls. For this one is the holly. So for this one, we're actually going to go at a diagonal because the background is all the same. It's all those little holly berries. So we're going to make it more interesting by putting our ink blending at a diagonal. And this is going to help to like bring it into where our sentiment is going to be, because that's really the only embellishment that we're going to add. But so doing it at a diagonal is another way that you can do ink blending. And like any of these, you can totally mix them up. So you could do the diagonal with the Christmas tree, or you could do, you know, the halo with the ornaments. Like you can mix these up and get several different types of cards. I know that when I'm making cards in bulk, sometimes I get very bored. I get very bored doing the same thing over and over again, which is why I typically make like one-off Christmas cards. But you know, just by switching up the way that you're doing your ink blending could make it a little bit more interesting. Also, during that time that I was talking, did you hear my dog shaking? Shaking. So my girls have always had collars, and they used to have tags with like my phone number and address on them. And I'll be honest, I was terrible at updating that. The phone number is still the same, but the address was the Critter Cottage. So recently, Personalization Mall had a sale, and they had like these cutest little collars, like that you could get their names on them, which I totally loved. And then like I also got their tags updated and put them back on. This one is the same thing. It's just clear water and then perfect pearls. And so my my Emma is always the loudest. Like she's so super loud. Her ears, her tail, like it doesn't matter. She's just a bull in a china shop. And the other day she was shaking, and I was like, oh my word, like could you be any louder? And my husband was like, it was bad before, and then you went and put bells on her. Like them tags, they're just jingling all over the place. And he's not wrong, because I'm sure that you could probably hear it in the video. Okay, so now we're on to our little silver snowflakes. And for this one, it's going to be a gradient from the top down, because like we want to give the impression like the snowflakes are floating downwards. But you could, you know, do whatever it is that you were doing this with. Like if you wanted to do the ornaments with this one, like you could, you know, do it from the bottom up or whatever. But so this one is, well, oh, I didn't even tell you what the last one was. I apologize. So the last one was Peacock Feathers, Mermaid Lagoon, Uncharted Mariner, and Black Soot. This one is Picked Raspberry, Wilted Violet, Villainous Potion, and Black Soot. What were we even talking about? I don't remember. I'm sure you'll tell me in the comments. It'll be like, oh, right. That's what I was talking about. But it'll be too late by then. It'll be too late by then. So we were talking about something. Don't you, like, I would be on the phone with my mom, and she would be like, I don't mean to interrupt you, but if I don't ask, I'm going to forget what it is. And now, like, as I have gotten older, I am so much the same way. Like, I'll be in the middle of doing something in the kitchen, and I'll be like, what? Why did I just come in here? What was I doing? What am I looking for? Like, I am like so lost in my own head. I don't even know what is happening. Oh, I think I was going to talk to you about the Stamptember releases. So they seem to be doing better this year, because it seems like there is maybe more stock. Here, we're just kind of recapping all of the things that we have done thus far. And then we're going to do the sentiments. So I've trimmed them down. Originally, I do just want to say that. Originally, I stamped the Merry and Bright onto, and I'm going to have to, I think it's Plumberry, I think is what it is. I'm going to have to double check. What is this? Gina, tell me what it is. Plum Punch. I stamped it onto Plum Punch, but then I switched to Wisteria because I didn't like the lighter purple with this card. I love the color. I think it's very pretty. So I am stamping all of these in white. That just made the most sense, because if you have ever watched a Gina K Designs card, like video or a live, or seen any of her cards, she very much loves like a black matte, like a black and white matte with her things. And honestly, so do I. Like Gina and I are kind of kindred spirits in that. So I knew that I was going to be doing some white or black accents, and the white made the most sense. Here is that wisteria color. I just wanted to show that I did like pop back over and stamp that. So once I heat set that, then I used the dies from the Stamptember set to cut out those two sentiments. The other ones I don't have have dies for. So I just trimmed the Christmas Begins with Christ into a square, and then the same thing with the Merry Christmas. I just trimmed it into a label. For this one, I did want to kind of set it apart from the background since I put it on, what is that? Teal Tempest, I think. And so I wanted to set it apart. So I just matted it onto the black. And then I'm going to use my guillotine trimmer to trim that. I didn't even measure. I just eyeballed it to see like that the border looked the same. And then I trimmed that off. Like it's glued down there and I'm just trimming it into a little square. All of the sentiments were popped up on foam. So for the Merry and Bright, the little square, the Merry Christmas on both of them, they were all popped up on foam. But if I was doing this in bulk, I probably wouldn't do that. I would probably just stamp them. Like for the snowflake one, I would stamp the Merry and Bright a little bit lower, and I would just do the embossing right onto the background, just to cut down on that. So yeah, anywho, there are still some products that are left. I did the Trinity Stamps one earlier. That one is sold out, but I will link all of the collaborations below. Something nice this year that they've done is they've listed all of them. So if it is listed and it doesn't have a picture, like it says, image coming soon, it just means that it hasn't come out yet. And it's always a surprise. And I mean, that part is, a little bit fun, kind of waiting to see what each set, when it's going to be coming out. So here is me adhering down that particular sentiment. And then the blue one, I'm going to show it, just because it's a little bit different. So I'm gluing down this to the middle. You absolutely could just leave the white borders on either side, but I really think that pop of black does add something, but I'm too cheap to waste a whole piece of black. A whole piece of black. And so I just cut little teeny tiny strips, and I'm going to put that on either side, and it just frames it in and finishes it off really nicely. If you guys have been here for any amount of time, you do know that I love a frame. I love a frame. I can't help it. It just makes everything look clean. So for this one, I did add some shimmer into where the ornament would be. Please remember that we use distress inks, so they do react with moisture. There is a chance that you can pull up some of that blue. And then I'm kind of going to use my little white gel pen here to kind of close the gap in between the snowflakes, to help it kind of look a little more like a full ornament. And then I'm going to add a little bit of depth with my Olo markers. So I'm going in with a medium blue just to the left of the string. And then I am going to add it kind of down into the bottom left underneath each of the ornaments that are hanging. And this one has like little ribbons and stuff, so I'll do it under there as well. This is just going to help give it a little bit of depth. What did I use? I used B 0.5 and B 0.3 to kind of blend that out. It's just something that gives it a little extra oomph. If you get any embossing powder or if you get any of your alcohol markers onto your embossing powder, just go in with a colorless blender and just kind of swipe it up. So the last one I just mounted onto black, that's this one. And then I went in with, I think they're called the frozen, what does she call them? Frozen rhinestones. That's what they're called. And I just used them to kind of accent each one of my sentiments, and just went through and added those. Again, they're not white exactly. They're more iridescent, but I think that they worked really well for all of the different colors that we had going on. And I like them. I like them a lot. I like the iridescent ones. I can't stop myself. So quick recap. We have the white emboss resist here. And then we have the gold emboss resist here. The next one is that clear. It also looks white because we did it on white paper, but it has that sparkle. And then the last one is that silver and kind of pearlescent. So that's all of them. I hope that this inspires you to go back to this classic technique. Again, if you're interested in the Stamptember set, you're going to want to grab that while it's still available. And I will be back, I think actually later today with the video. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.